Hey there, audio listeners. Got a couple of disclaimers before this first ever groundbreaking interview episode from the Unhinged Father podcast. First disclaimer is this was my first time doing an interview with someone in person. We only had one microphone, and so we try to get the settings as best as possible, but you will hear a distinct audio difference between my voice and the person I'm interviewing. I gave the person I'm interviewing the better side of the microphone, and so I may sound a little distant. I'm aware of it. It's something that I'm working to fix if I do interviews in the future or when I do interviews in the future. Second disclaimer is that in this episode, I was in an element where I was a little bit more comfortable and relaxed and wasn't thinking as much as what I was saying. And so I do curse quite a bit in this episode. Just a fair warning. I noticed it, and it's probably something I'll be working on in future interviews. I guess you could say trigger warning. I do say the fuck word a lot in this episode. And I guess the last disclaimer or maybe more so announcement would be this is my first interview. I don't plan on it being the last interview. If you're interested in being on the podcast, shoot me a message, let me know, and we'll see if we can make that happen. Other than that, I hope you all enjoy the episode. Welcome to the podcast, everyone. I'm your host, the Unhinged Father, coming to you live from my place of business, my place of work. I'm here with my friend who's going to be going by the name Rabbit for this episode. Someone I've known for quite some time. I think it's like 10 or 11 years now. Known him for a long time. Good dude. And we've gone through quite a bit together at work. And I just thought it would be a good intro into this interview process. Just bear with us. I've never interviewed anyone before. I'm not a professional interviewer. Don't call me Joe Rogan or fucking Tim Ferriss. Just wanted to get this out there and try it out. So this is my friend Rabbit. I'm going to go ahead and let him introduce himself and talk a little bit or as much as he wants to about himself and, you know, what he's all about.
What's up, everybody? Happy to be here. Thanks for bringing me on the podcast, man. It's exciting. I've been listening for the last couple months, and I love how you're starting the 2 episodes a week. Definitely a good thing. But yeah, so I'm going by Rabbit today. I've known probably like 12 years. We started a couple months apart and always within the Sacramento area, and then recently moved with my family out of the city, which has been great. I have a wife and 3 little kiddos, and yeah, I'm nervous, man, but this is good. I like it.
It's all good. You already fucked up and used my name, but I'll cut that one out later. Now I cut it out later. I'll just fucking dub it over like, Unhinged Father. Oh, man. So me and Rabbit have gone back a long time, like you talked about. We kind of had kids around the same time, too. Rabbit beat me by a couple months. His eldest is just a couple months older than mine, but you know, we always go back to when we first started. We actually carpooled together, and we were just these shithead employees working for our company, brand new, just fucking stars in our eyes for sales. We're going to make a shit ton of money. And our car situation was just fucking abysmal. So I'll fucking dive in a little bit into Rabbit's car situation because that was the scary one for me. And he could dive into fucking what it was like driving in my truck down the highway at fucking 70 miles an hour. But
it's not good, I'll tell you that.
Dude, his first car, I just remember driving in it and the transmission was starting to go and making those left-hand turns. I fucking saw my life flash before my eyes because he'd make these left-hand turns and then it would stall. And like, I didn't know what was going on at first. And all of a sudden we're stopped in the middle of an intersection with like a semi rolling towards us. And I'm like, dude, you gonna go? I don't know you very well yet. I've only known you for like fucking 13 seconds. You fucking go or am I gonna die here?
You gotta let it click into gear, baby.
Yeah. And then, dude, we just fucking went off and it was good. And then the best part is we get in the parking lot and I'm waiting for him to get out. I'm like trying to not be rude and just like rush out. And he's just sitting there fucking staring at me. And I'm like, you gonna get out, dude? And he's just like, yeah, I gotta get out the fucking side door that you're in. My door doesn't fucking work. It doesn't open up.
Doesn't open from the inside or outside.
Dude, so I gotta fucking crawl over the top and get out. So that's how we started, man. Yeah, and then Rabbit could tell you a little bit about, you know, what it was like driving with me because it wasn't much better.
Oh, yeah. I remember trying to get out of my car when we got to work, and I would say 90% of the time you would shut the door on me when I was trying to crawl over. I'm like, hey, guy, I'm coming out the same door. Nah, dude. No, I didn't have any money. But yeah, and then Robbie drove, I don't even remember what it was. It was like a little S10, like Tundra or something.
Nissan, dude. Frontier.
Yeah,
Nissan.
Frontier,
son.
Terrible. And I think the best way to explain it was if everyone's been on a boat at sea or the lake, that's exactly what it felt like in this guy's vehicle. We would be going down the highway. He would put on his brakes a little bit and it would just go, it would slosh back and forth. I don't even know if it was shocks or whatever. It was the craziest thing. And I definitely didn't feel comfortable, but the good thing is, we always got to work on time and safely, but it was definitely scary at times.
Yeah, on time, you fucking Gen Zers, all right? Just remember that.
That's right.
Even if we had to fucking brave the, shocks that didn't work and a fucking transmission that was going, we found a way. Uber or fucking Lyft, dude, find a way.
Yeah, I can't believe that was, because I just hit 13 years here. So about 12 years and some change. Yep. And been through a lot. No kids at the time for either of us. Yeah. And now we got a lot.
Yeah, things have changed quite a bit for us. And we'll jump into a little bit of what it was like prior, because we work for a sales company. I'm not going to say what the company is that we work for. We do contingent staffing. There's a bunch of those companies out there. And it was good, man. It was work hard, play hard. It was definitely a different era, just happy hours constantly. But we were just joking around about how it was nuts. We didn't have any responsibilities besides I was married. You had been with your not your wife at the time, but
for a long time.
Your woman for a long time. And so we were tied down there, but man, we just on a whim go out, drink, happy hour. We had a fucking crazy ass boss who all he did was drink constantly.
Go to Tahoe.
Oh yeah. Oh. So for you, I just still remember the reason we call him Rabbit. And most of the people at this company don't remember it anymore is because of this trip he just made up randomly to Tahoe, basically on a whim. So why don't you want to tell people about your Rabbit experience?
Yeah. So I was probably about 6 months into this new job, went out to happy hour with my director and a client. And it was in a city right outside of Sacramento. And it was on a Friday afternoon. And I thought I should say, hey, have a couple drinks and then go home. My girlfriend at the time was out of town, back home visiting her family. So I was like, yeah, I'll stay out a little bit later. But fast forward to maybe an hour or two into this happy hour, the client and my director had an idea of like, hey, it's Halloween weekend. We're having a good time. Like, let's drive up to Tahoe, South Lake Tahoe. And 6 months in, hey, no problem. Let's do it. So we mobbed up to Tahoe. It was the night before Halloween. It was snow everywhere. It was cold. We met up with some buddies from work actually that had taken the day off and they were going to spend the entire weekend there, going out, dressing up. And we just mobbed into town. We were drinking all the way up, which was crazy, not the driver. But we let the friends know we were getting into town. We had no costumes. We were still in our work clothes. We went to the house that they were staying at. We all got our costumes on, and I remember I ended up putting on like a Superman costume, and the only costume left was a rabbit suit. And the client was like, hey, I'm not wearing a rabbit suit. Give me your fucking Superman costume. And I was like, okay. Oh yeah, absolutely. I was like, yes, sir. So I took that off, put the rabbit suit on. We went to, what was the club? I think it was like Vex before. It was in South Lake Tahoe, I think at Harrah's. And we were just having a blast. And we were all in there, ton of people dressed up. And I had only been to Tahoe a couple times at that point. And I remember drinking, I think it was like a vodka shot of some kind, and it just didn't really sit well. And then all of a sudden I was like, hey, I need to go to the bathroom. Like, I don't know if I'm going to throw up or what. And I didn't realize there were no bathrooms inside this club, and the bathrooms were out on the casino floor. So I went around to this dark area in the club, kind of like a hallway, and I yacked. I threw up and was like, oh, I'm fine. And I was like turning around to come back out. And then there was this flashlight on me. And then this guy was like, hey, you're out of here. What are you doing back here? He threw me out of the club and I couldn't get back in. And then I was like, okay, I got to get back in. Everybody's in there. It's only 11 o'clock at night. So I go outside. There's snow everywhere, probably 2-3 feet. I take the rabbit suit off, hide it under a tree in the snow, go back in line to the club, get in, and start partying again. And then everybody was like, hey, where's your rabbit suit? Like, you got kicked out, all this stuff. And that's how the name, the Rabbit, came to be.
Yeah. No, Sneaky Rabbit just snuck back into the club, and that story was legendary. There was actually a photo that just never went away.
That's true.
Rabbit just sitting there smiling with the client. The client's in his stupid smirk with a fucking Superman outfit. So that's all of this really just to say that when we were younger, we didn't have kids, didn't have responsibilities, just on a whim, could
let it rip.
Yeah, let it rip, take up off to Tahoe, do what you need to do. And now shit's different. Now shit's real different,
Very
right?
different.
We both have fucking kids. I've got 2, you've got 3. So, I mean, since you've transitioned into family life and fatherhood, what's it really been like? How have things changed for you?
Yeah. The biggest change is just you're not on your own schedule anymore. And being a father is the absolute best thing in the world. You can't really do it justice by describing it, but it's been the best thing that's ever happened to me. I would die for any 3 of those kiddos in an instant, and being able to, balance everything. You still need your own identity. You still have your marriage, and then you have the kids, and it's tough. Having 3 kids that are, 5 and under, it's a loud household. It's all about family, spending quality time, making memories, doing traditions, being very intentional, and trying to have fun along the way. It's, what's the saying? The days are long, but the years are short. And we're in the thick of it. And my wife and I always talk at the end of the day when we're sitting on the couch and, how grateful we are, but also how tough it is, because kids don't always listen. They don't get along. They hate each other. They, do all that stuff. But it's just, it's a process, man. Getting better at it each day.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you're 100% right. You just don't have, your time is not necessarily yours anymore. It's your kids and it's your families. You got to do whatever you can for them. And I don't know how the fuck families do it. I know that you guys are lucky enough to have one of you be at home with the kids. We don't have that luxury. We both are out there hitting the salt mines, and it's definitely something that, I don't know how people do, and more power to like single mothers or single dads who do it. I have no clue how the fuck they do that shit, but it changes a lot. And you talked about the good and the bad that come along with it. And anyone who's listening to this podcast know that I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat stuff and just say like, you only have so much time. You never know how much time you have left with your kids. We all know that. But you got to acknowledge the shit stuff too.
Oh, yeah.
Like one thing that is top of mind, especially I've been in your house, one time, and it's stairs on fucking doors to the outside, and you live in the forest. So there's coyotes and bears and fucking mountain lions, and kids already try to fucking kill themselves constantly. That's your number one job for the first couple of years is to make sure that they don't fucking die.
Yep.
You're doing a pretty good job on that. But I can only imagine with you, like we put our kids in a little corner. They can't really get into shit, but how do you, that's got to be something that's like a full-time job, just making sure the kids don't go outdoors, making sure it's all locked?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we ended up after, I don't know, probably about a year in our new spot, we put up a fence around the yard. It was actually 2 days ago. I went out, I was drinking coffee on the back porch and looked out. There's 2 huge coyotes out by the pond. And it's just, if we didn't have that fence, the coyotes could easily get in. We did it for the dog. We have a little Frenchie named Cedric. He would just get annihilated by any of the wildlife out there. So we have a 5-foot fence that deters a lot of animals, and we let the kids run around. We have a gate around the pool, and it's almost, it's the old school. And that's why we wanted to move out of the city, get out of the day-to-day, and, get out. My wife was raised in the country. I was as well. And being able to let them figure it out has been great.
Yeah.
We send them out back. We know it's contained and safe. And yeah, we'll be out there. I might be drinking a beer on the back porch or down with them, but they're falling, they're crying, they're figuring it out, digging up worms, ripping worms in half. We put a play structure up too that they love, doing slides and stuff like that. But we just try to make them, as independent as possible and try to entertain themselves.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, something that I think I've talked on a previous episode, but it's always a constant struggle is, where do you look for your information on how to do the raising? Because, everyone's got their own fucking way of doing shit. And you're going to get grandparents that tell you like, put some socks on that kid. It's going to get a fucking cold. It's like, no, grandma, stop smoking cigarettes around my fucking child. So where do you go for this knowledge? Where do you find stuff? You rely on instinct, you read books, where are you kind of?
Yeah, I would have to say my wife, number one, she is always reading something, watching videos, and she has really led the charge on that. My biggest thing is just the instincts, and I came up, I had a great childhood, great parents, so I try to do a lot of things that they did. But they just don't tell you like how tough it is to raise another human that has their own will, and they're like, hey, no, I don't want to fucking listen. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to hit my sister, or, push my little brother down. And it's just, you can get to a boiling point so fast. And I know that about myself. And I've actually been able to kind of slow down in moments where maybe 5 years ago I would have been yelling or doing something where I'm still frustrated inside, but being able to just calmly address the situation, seek to understand what's going on, try to help them come to some type of learning moment if possible, and then, move on. But my wife, she is definitely the one with a lot of the information, but we've watched videos, paid, for professional kind of help that really is insightful in a lot of different areas, from potty training to sibling rivalry to screen time. A lot of different things are out there, and we definitely try to lean on those resources.
Yeah, dude. Big Little Feelings, probably, right?
Dude, I think that might be one of them.
Yeah. No, because your wife and my wife are very similar.
Oh, yeah.
I fucking know.
Yeah.
No, for sure. And I appreciate you, acknowledging that it's hard. Everyone always jokes that I do a good job of selling, like having kids. And yeah, of course I sell it hard because it's fucking hard. It's the greatest thing in the world. But sometimes you're just sitting on the couch and you're like, I can't fucking move right now. And then after you say that, your kid starts crying in bed and has a fucking cough, and you're like, I don't physically have the energy to do this anymore, but there's no, like, the buck stops with you. You just got to fucking do it.
Oh, yeah. One last thing I do want to say is the thing I missed the most is being able to nap whenever I wanted to. If you don't have kids, nap as much as possible now, because you'll never get that back.
Yeah. No, there's no such thing as fucking napping. They're like, nap when the kid naps. Like, well, when am I supposed to do all the other fucking shit I need to do? Also, I always joke with the fact that I think that people who are super successful in life just figure out time management of a parent prior to having kids. Because, like, when we were younger, I'd be like, oh, I've got no time to do anything. And I had all the time in the world. Now I literally don't have any time to do anything, and I do more than I did back then. So it's like, figure out how to live as if you had kids, and you'll be just fucking successful, whatever you do.
No doubt.
So speaking of all that, right, we give so much to our family, and we're constantly looking for, ways to improve and be the best parent we can. And I don't want to speak for you, but everyone always jokes with you about like, oh, well, your kids will survive, or that's not going to kill them. And to me, it's not about survival. It's about like, what can I do to make my kid thrive, right? Survival is a very low fucking bar to hold our children to. Like, there are kids in Africa that are going through civil war and plague and hunger, and they still survive. So if we're holding our kids to that standard, that's pretty fucking low in my opinions. but we give so much to them. What are some things that you do to kind of keep yourself, right? Because you don't want to lose yourself completely into dadhood.
Yep.
What are some things you do?
So I was on a pretty good routine, waking up early before we had our third kiddo and just getting that time in the morning to myself. But I've been in the trenches, man. Like, our youngest is 7 months old now, and the first 6 months, he didn't sleep longer than 2 to 3 hours at night. And we thought the third kid was going to be easy because the first two, we were able to kind of create that routine and get them to sleep through the night. But for whatever reason, the little dude just did not. So my wife and I, we were in the trenches just battling for the last 6 months. It hasn't really been until the last month where he's been sleeping through the night a little bit more consistently. But, you know, I have found that I am getting up earlier. I usually get the girls, you know, out of bed between 7 and 7:30, but I usually try to wake up around 6:30 and have, you know, that 30 minutes to an hour to, you know, drink coffee, sit on the back porch, sit in silence, take a shower, get dressed for the day. What I found is when you're going through it, and you're trying to survive, it's tough. Like, you wake up and then you have to just jump into it, and starting your day in that type of mindset is just, it's tough because it's just go, 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 go. It's like you wake up and then you have to get the kids and then, you know, get them ready for school and then, you know, breakfast, all that stuff. So trying to slow down a little bit in the mornings. And once we put the kiddos to bed is when we try to just kind of relax.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm sure drinking beer is probably still a part of you that you still go to. But
yep.
I was just thinking the other day, I can't think of the last time I went to a fucking bar and actually went out drinking at a bar. I'm not sure if that's the same for you, but it's literally probably been like a couple of years since I've been to a bar drinking.
Oh yeah. I've been to a bar drinking, like, outside of a work function like that. I don't remember the last time.
Yeah, I don't count work functions anymore because those are just like they're like basically during the day. I'm talking about going out and spending the entire night at a bar. And then until, you know, it's 2 a.m. and you're listening to Toto's Africa and singing it at the top of your lungs.
Yeah, it's probably 6 years, 7 years. It's been a long time. But, you know, I wouldn't trade it for the world. But, you know, my wife and I, we do need to go out on more dates. That's one thing that we really struggle with, is just like there's just no time, and we need to do a better job of just creating that time to spend together.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. We just tell ourselves that it's like a season. It's like the season of life that we're in right now. We just got to get through this season, you know, basically the next 20 years, and then we'll be good to go.
Yeah.
So moving on from there, obviously a lot you're going through right now, you and your wife and the family. What would you say is kind of the best part? If you could distill it down, what's the best part that you've seen so far of being a dad?
I think just the way the kiddos look at you and they just want you to see them, of like, all right, hey, I'm going down the slide, Dad, watch me, or hey, Dad, carry me or hold me. And I know one day they won't, especially having 2 girls first. It's like when they hit the teenage years, it's going to be tough, man. And it's not something I'm looking forward to. But quick story, it's the little things that make it so impactful. It's April 1st was a few days ago, and my 2-year-old, she would say something kind of like mimicking her older sister, because that's what she does with most things. And she would say, hey, Daddy, you need to go to work. I think it was on like a Saturday or something. She's like, Daddy, you need to go to work. And then she would say April squirrels, because she couldn't say April Fools. And we're like, are you saying squirrels? And she's like, no, I'm saying squirrels. So she thinks she said it, and it was just the cutest thing. We got that on video, and those are the moments where it's like, all right, everything is worth it. You know, 30 minutes ago, you're having, you know, a meltdown, but it's just for her to smile and say something like that. It's just, yeah, you can't really trade that in for anything. It's the best.
No, you can't trade it in. And, you know, for me, it's just when they come and they fucking run up to you and give you a big hug. Just that that dependence on you still, that love that they've got, just that pure innocence. You can't beat it. I mean, even my 1-year-old, he doesn't really know what the fuck's going on, but he's a little Viking. We just talk about how he's very much like me, and my elder one is a little bit more like my wife, and he's just full speed, 100%, yells at everyone, very intense. And he's really into just yelling for me right now. He goes, "Da!" He's like a little fucking Scottish or Irish kid. He's like, "Da!" And then he runs up and just barrels into me, and half the time bites me. But, it just that love, that dependence, that's like the best part. And it's great. And speaking of kids saying stuff wrong, this will jump right into like the funny stories with your kids. But for me, I just still remember when my eldest was starting to talk, and he was wearing his Crocs, and we're like, "Hey, bud, what are you doing there? What are you putting on your feet?" And he's just like, "Cocks." We're like, "What are those?" And he's like, "They're cocks. I got my cocks." We just made him say it over and over again, and we just thought it was hilarious. So we're terrible parents. We were making our kids sit there and say cock over and over again, but really he was trying to say Crocs. But for you, were there any funny stories you want to share that are not too embarrassing to where your girls get older? And this show obviously goes from the 12 listeners to whopping 20 listeners, and they don't want to be too embarrassed.
Yeah. You'll have millions one day. I think the most consistent one that it's just, it's still funny to this day is my oldest daughter. She'll always say, "Hey, Dad, how's your beard?" And the first time she said it, I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Yeah, how's your beard?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do have a beard." And she's like, "No." And then she pointed at the glass of beer I was drinking. So she continues to say that. And now my 2-year-old says, "Hey, how's your beard?" And they'll we have like a little mini fridge in the garage. And my oldest will, like, after work or I get home or we're out riding bikes or whatever, or scooters, and she'll go over and get a nice IPA out of the little fridge and say, "Hey, Dad, here's your beard." And it always brings a smile to my face. And it's going to be tough when she can say beer correctly one day.
Yeah, Rabbit's the ever traditionalist, already teaching his daughters to go get beers for someone. So right there. Nah, just kidding. His daughters are going to grow up to be the first fucking female president, probably.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, we just talked a little bit about all this stuff with kids. It's funny, all that stuff, but there's also this big fear that comes along with being a father, with being a parent, especially in today's day and age. We all remember our parents saying, like, this new generation is just not the same. Like, you guys have it so much easier growing up. There's all these different problems, but I never really understood it until I became a parent. And now with social media, social contagions, quote unquote, gentle parenting, these are all things that I kind of think about. And I'm like, hey, are we doing this right? Or are we fucking up? For you, what are you kind of seeing within your own sphere of influence? Is social media something that scares you or something that you're ready for? I know we're not there yet, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about this, and my wife and I talk about it a lot. And it's, you give a kid a cell phone or a computer, you're not just giving them that, like, you're letting the world in if you give a device to your kid. It's, I trust my kids to do the right thing, but I don't trust the world that now has access to them, by example, like a cell phone. And I've read a lot about that and watched videos, and my personal stance is I will give them a cell phone at some point, but they're not going to have access to, all the apps or things like that. It's just more of like using it as a phone to call myself or their mom, and really limiting that. And also just being able to be okay with them getting upset and mad one day, or it's like, hey, you're not going to have an iPhone. It's just, that's the stance that I'm going to take on it. And it is what it is. And I can only kind of try that for as long as possible. And I know it might be extreme, but I think there's other ways or avenues that they're going to be able to have access to that when they, go over to friends' houses or they go to school. Like, I'm not oblivious to that. So I'm just trying to kind of mitigate it as much as possible, but I also don't want to say like, hey, no drinking until, you're 21, and then they are locked in their bedroom for, the first 18 years of their life, and then they go out to college and then they go off the deep end. Like I've known people like that. So trying to find that balance, but I'm scared shitless because, social media is so crazy, and, we're in a unique generation where, we grew up with no social media, but, social media is such a big thing now where there's a lot of good, but there's also a lot of bad.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something that scares the shit out of me too with social media, and not even just social media, phones. And I think we're in a unique situation because we're really that first generation that had social media, and we grew up with the iPhone and stuff, but we also had time where we didn't have that, right? We're like that in-between generation. And I think that it's really important for us to realize, I notice that I'm on the phone a lot, and I've really been trying to limit my own because I don't want to be that hypocritical dad that's like, no social media, you can't use your phone, but then I'm constantly on my fucking phone. So like, I've taken the steps, I've deleted social media off my phone, deleted search browsers, like all of that shit. Yeah. Because I don't want to have it be, that's like the main thing within our household. And I think the hope or the goal is to give my kids freedom in so many different areas that they see that that's way more fun than just fucking sitting on their phone and like watching other people do it. It's like, Do you want to watch videos of someone go fucking wakeboarding, or do you want to go wakeboarding? Do you want to go for a fucking hike? Do you want to go do all of these other things? I'm going to give you the freedom to do these things responsibly with me. And I think that that's kind of where, what you talked about with alcohol, when you completely deny them, the threat is always that they'll just push back so far to that resistance and try to dive like even deeper into it, right? We all know those Catholic girls who didn't do anything in high school and then went to college. They go out there and they just go absolutely nuts. Same with the guys too. It's not really a gendered thing. It's just you resist, or you put so much resistance on it, they're going to try and go into that. So I think the hard part is trying to figure out where's that middle ground of, I'm sticking firm here and I'm not letting you have social media and all these things, but here's the alternative. Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why we moved out of the city. It's outside of, needles on the ground, on the sidewalks, homeless, like walking by our house. Like we just wanted them to be more free to do whatever. So moved up towards Tahoe, and, they're outside a ton, and that definitely helps.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then we talked a little bit about like we won't jump into social contagion because don't want to get too political here. So we'll go ahead and jump into gentle parenting a little bit. And I think that kind of ties in well with this, as we're talking about what are the things that we're going to do. And we grew up in that middle ground. One of the other things that was a middle ground is that I'm pretty sure that, I know my parents used to fucking belt me, and psychological warfare was definitely at play, and manipulation in my childhood, at least. And we're now at this point where we can try and make changes, but how far do you go into, especially with all these newfangled psychology, and everyone's got different opinions and theories, and it almost feels like intuition and instinct fight against some of the things that these like psychologists will say. So what's your take on gentle parenting, and how are you guys approaching that?
Yeah, we definitely are on the gentle parenting kind of ride right now. And, what we're kind of struggling with right now is just like making sure that my wife and I are on the same page where, she'll try to discipline them, and then I'll not agree with her in the moment for whatever it is, because maybe I came into the room after, and it's like, that is not helpful to your spouse or your kids. So making sure you're on the same page, and then just agree with them in the moment. And then after, if you disagree, you can talk through it. But it's a balance. It's like, I don't want to just go, hey, like la-di-da-di-da, and then they can kind of wear whatever the fuck they want or do whatever they want or backtalk or whatever. So it's holding strong, putting that line in the sand to make sure it's like, hey, you need to respect your parents. We are on the same page, and there are things that we do for your safety that you just don't understand right now. And that can be upsetting, but the more and more we instill kind of like the good behaviors of, hey, you can't hit this person, or we're going to need to separate you, or do whatever. It's being consistent and following through. And following through has been another big one, because it's so easy to be like, oh yeah, no TV time today. We usually let them watch one episode of something, and earlier in the day we'll say, hey, you just lost your TV time, and it's like 2 hours later, we're like, you're tired, and you're just like, let's just put on the TV. So then they will do the same exact action or approach and understand that there's no consequences. So just making sure to follow through on that, and being consistent is what we're learning is the most effective.
Oh yeah, consistency is key, but it's also just super hard to do when you're at your wit end and you're like, you're just fucking watch a little bit of TV. I'll also say that some of the things that we read, because my wife's big on all the different blogs and shit like that, and the one that I just disagree with completely is the dessert one. They're like, just make it a part of the meal. Just put the dessert on the dinner plate. Don't make it a reward. And then you know what happens? The kid just eats the fucking Reese's Pieces and leaves the rest of the dinner. It's like, oh, I'm full. And then later he's like, I want a snack. I'm hungry. Yep. Last night I had to send him to bed. He said he was hungry. Kid ate all of his dinner, and I gave him the option to have a snack. He's like, no, I want to play. I'm not hungry. And then right when it was bedtime, he's like, Dad, I'm hungry. Dad, I'm hungry. Dad, I'm fucking 400 times. I'm like, dude, I'm not giving in, because that's setting a precedent. Yep. You're not starving. You are well fed. You have water. You're going to have to tell Dad next time you make the decision. You want a snack? Tell me then. But the whole dessert with dinner thing, those psychologists are off their rocker. Those child psychologists or, Insta moms or whoever tells you to do that, they're full of shit. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten my kid to eat dinner because I'm like, hey, dude, you want candy? Do you want dessert tonight? Guess what? You need to eat dinner. He's like, how many? He's got to the point where I have to fucking like break it down. I like break off, dude, if you eat this much, it's worth like one candy. If you eat this much, it's worth 2 candies. So I'm sure there's a bunch of shit that's fucked up with that too. Yeah. But guess what? The kid eats his goddamn dinner. All right. That's the big thing there. And I'm not making him sit at the table for 4 hours like my grandparents used to do to me. But yeah, I'm sure you get that feeling too, where sometimes you're like, you little motherfucker, just do what I say.
Oh yeah. You just want to, go back old school parenting. I remember, putting on like a couple layers of undies before my mom or dad spanked me, just to pad it up a little bit.
Yeah, spanking wouldn't work with me anyways, because both of my kids are just little tanks, and I teach them to do noggin with me, and my youngest now did noggin to his nanny and gave her a bloody nose, and he's 1, and I've done the things where I've like smacked him on the butt, like just like playing, and I'm like, dude, if I really wanted to do like a spanking, I would have to smack the shit out of this kid, because he's just sitting here laughing, doesn't even care. So no, for sure. Well, any other thoughts on parenting, gentle parenting, social media, anything like that?
Yeah, it's just, everybody, listening out there, millions of you, it's, parenting's hard, but you got to give yourself a little bit of grace, and you're doing it better than a lot of people out there. So just keep on keeping on.
Yeah, and now we're going to get to the part of this conversation that Rabbit's been waiting for forever. He's been telling me since I started this, he's like, dude, talk about movies or music. So we're going to jump in a little bit into the culture aspect of things here. And we'll start off with movies, because me and Rabbit, we're big movie buffs, and we talk about that shit all the time. So are there any, first off, we'll start with any new ones, because I know there are old movies you want to fucking talk about, but are there any new movies you've seen or any shows or anything that you think are good?
Yeah, the show that we're watching right now is called Shogun. It's 1600s Japan, and man, it's probably 5-6 episodes in, and it's so well written. The cast, the acting, the cinematography, and just the way they produce it is, one of the best shows I've seen in years. That is on, I think, Hulu and Disney. So highly recommend that. And then the best series of all time is True Detective, by far. My wife and I rewatched that within the last year. And I think it came out mid-2000s, maybe like 2000, 10, 12. And it has stood the test of time. You know, there's 8 to 10 episodes, and you know, Woody Harrelson and
McConaughey.
McConaughey. I was like, dude,
Yeah,
all right,
your boy, dude.
yeah. He, the acting is just superb, and just makes you feel like you're in the South. And I could go on and on about that show, but definitely top series of all time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the 101st Airborne Easy Company may have something to say about that.
Band of Brothers, baby.
Band of Brothers might Battle Bastogne. Band of Brothers might have something to say about it. But yeah, True Detective, good one. Movie wise, it's got a lot of hype, but it's actually pretty good. And I wish we would have seen it in the theaters. Like, we watched the first Dune, and it was pretty good. I mean, it's going back to that old school. I don't know if I've talked about it here, but we're getting this time within movies where everyone's relying so heavily on fucking special effects and shit like that they're losing like the grandiosity and like everything's just so generic when it goes through all special effects. And I like think back to the Lord of the Rings, the movie.
Yeah.
There was so much like practical effects in there, and they took so much time to do all this shit. And when I talk to my family that's in the movie industry, like, well, there's just no one wants to take that time or spend that money to do those types of things anymore when they could just do special effects. But Dune uses more practical effects. They get a good soundtrack in there, and it just brings back this like grand movie experience, which I think is something that we're missing. Like, there's definitely a something missed in translation when you watch something at home or you watch it in the movie theater. And Dune is another movie that I think is one that should be seen in the theater. Just being surrounded by the visuals and the sound, and the story's pretty good as well. Haven't seen Dune 2 yet. I heard it's better than the first one, but I just think that that's something that we need to kind of get back to as a society. Not a society, who gives a shit? It's just movies, but having the movie be an escape for you, right? When we watch it at home, it's not an escape. You're just fucking sitting on your couch. And I don't give a shit how good your theater is. It's not going to be like sitting with a 100-foot screen in front of you and speakers all around you. So I would definitely suggest the Dune movie.
Yeah, we watched that too at home, and would love to see Dune 2. I've heard great things about that. But yeah, it's cinema. And another good one in the last couple of years that I've seen is Maverick. Top Gun definitely was instrumental during COVID around like, I forget what director. It might have been, who was it? Scorsese? Said that, that movie saved the movies because it was so well done. The music was great. The acting was amazing. And it's just movies at a point were kind of like on the out where there was such good quality coming out of like HBO, Apple, Hulu, all these different platforms, Netflix, that, a lot of people weren't going to the movies anymore. But with like a Dune or a Maverick coming in, it definitely gives hope that cinema will always be there, and both top quality movies.
Yeah, America. Fuck yeah. Nah, for sure. Maverick, I saw that one, not in the theaters, though. I wish I would have gone and seen it in the theaters. My dad was telling me that it was pretty solid. And, of course, the original, that's like one of the GOATs, Tom Cruise, homoerotic volleyball scenes.
Yeah.
The silhouette sex scenes with fucking Berlin, Take My Breath Away. Just classic 80s cinema. And they brought a little bit of that back. So that's a good one. Any old movies you want to recommend anyone out there? And when I say old, we're both millennials. So to us, I'll just do an example. The Goofy movie, dude, went back and watched a little bit of that, and just, I can't believe they never went back and made a full soundtrack for fucking Powerline, because they had some bangers on it. But everything is just 90s references through and through. I had my son watch a little bit of it, and he's just like, what is this, Dad? I'm like, it's the greatest time you'll never know. It's called the fucking 90s, kid.
That's right. This is just completely random, but yeah, do you remember The Brave Little Toaster?
Oh, yeah. The Brave Little Toaster?
Yeah, dude. With like the little blanket. That was solid. But favorite movie of all time, Braveheart with Mel Gibson, William Wallace. Definitely watch that. It has a little bit of everything. It has the action. It has, the love story. It has great cinematography, good acting, has the whole spiel, and it's based on a true story loosely. So number one movie for sure. My top Western would be a Clint Eastwood, probably The Outlaw Josie Wales or The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. And then top comedy would be Happy Gilmore with Adam Sandler or Dumb and Dumber with Jim Carrey, man. Jim Carrey.
Yeah, dude, they're making a Happy Gilmore too.
I heard that.
Hopefully they don't go the way of Dumb and Dumber, which was a fucking terrible movie because Dumb and Dumber was great.
Yeah.
So, no, those are all good ones. And then obviously greatest movie soundtrack of all time, Last Mohicans.
Oh, yeah.
So, Rabbit knows that.
Yeah, dude, Daniel Day-Lewis, man. Last Mohicans, one of the best. Definitely a top 10.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're coming up to the end of this here pretty soon. A few more things, but any new or old music that you're just vibing with right now?
Dude, like I was going down to the Bay Area for work, and yeah, I was just listening to like old school, like fucking, I think it was like Story of the Year, The U, some of that old school stuff. Been jamming too, and then just like the old school rap, like Ice Cube, No Vaseline, some of that stuff that just slaps.
Yeah, no, for sure. That old school they used and all that stuff, dude, that's what my son, he's all in that one of the episodes, I'm just a kid. That's his favorite one. He calls it the kid song. We just fucking jam out to it pretty regularly. And then I put on that like Create a Station. And it just, like I said, same with the Goofy movie, man. The late 90s, early 2000s. You can't beat that fucking alternative scene. It was just slapper after slapper, dude. Just banger after banger.
Right.
So,
do you remember being able to like record on your cell phone back in the day, like songs as your message machine?
Oh, yeah.
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 I had the Used, I think, or like one of those songs.
Dude, I'm fucking old enough to remember when we would record from the radio on our fucking cassette tape.
Yes.
That's the only way you could get it because there's no fucking, you couldn't CD burn. LimeWire and fucking Napster weren't a thing yet. So you just sit there and wait all day for your favorite fucking song to come on and then hit record. So you'd always be missing the front end of it.
Yeah.
And then you just record it on your cassette. And then nowadays, kids are like, what's this fucking, what's this thing?
Yeah.
It's a fucking cassette, audio cassette, son. Any good books or anything like that you been reading? I'm not sure if you're a big reader or not, but...
Yeah, I am going to. I got recommended, I think it's called Green Light with McConaughey. So I'm going to get that audiobook so I can listen to it on the commute to work. But I listened to like a 3-minute snippet, but that seems like a solid book. I've read a lot of business books over the last, decade, but I try to stay away because they all say the same fucking shit just in different ways. And I just try to figure it out myself. So definitely more of like a podcast guy, listening to this, of course, golf podcasts and a little bit of the political stuff as well.
Awesome, man. Yeah, for me, I'm reading on my wife's recommendation. Anyone who's on the Instagram has seen Sarah J. Maas, A Court of Rose and Thorns, I think is what it's called. And I'm just fucking with her like the entire time, and just because it's a book by a woman, and she's like, it's a fantasy and all this stuff. So I'm just sitting there and trying to make fun of it, but it's pretty good. It's a good story, and I'm not very far into it. I'm like 100 pages into it, but I'm reading that just because my wife went through and read the entire series. I think it's big. I wouldn't be surprised if your wife has fucking read the stories or has them at the house.
Oh yeah, I'm sure she does.
But I'm going through and reading those right now, so that way I have something to talk to my wife about. I'll let y'all know how it is later on, or if if I have to turn in my man card at the end of reading that series, I'll let y'all know. But other than that, man, that's going to be the end of the podcast right there. I just want to thank my friend Rabbit for jumping on and doing this with me, man.
Hell yeah, dude. It was a pleasure. And I know it's Masters Week, biggest golf tournament of the week. I'm a big golfer, man. So we'll see how it turns out. My guess, just so we get this on recording, is Rombo, and then my wild card is Sergio Garcia at 200-1.
Yeah, that's it. Write it in stone. I'm guessing that Tiger Woods is going to win this one because that's how much I fucking know about golf, dude.
I would love that.
Tiger and 10. Tiger and 10. I don't even know what that means.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on, man. It's been great, and looking forward to hearing it.
Yep, for sure, man. So this has been the podcast. If you guys enjoy it, give me a follow on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasting needs met. You can follow on Instagram, Facebook. I'm not really as big into the social media, but I realize I got to play the social media game to get anyone to listen to this fucking podcast. All of you loyal fans out there, I appreciate it. Feel free to give me a 5-star review if you think the podcast is deserving. If you give me a 1-star review, I will find you and I will make you pay. And then an ask I always have with everyone is that if you do enjoy this or you find some sort of benefit within the podcast, share it with someone. Share it with a friend, family member, someone that you think this would just completely piss off and they're like, why the fuck are you sending me this shit? Send it to them. Other than that, I hope everyone has a fantastic week. And as always, be good, try hard, do your best.
Peace.